Welcome, everyone. I want to wish you a happy Wednesday. And as you are joining in, please let me know where you're joining us from. I'm checking my tech over here real quick. It looks like on Facebook we are connected, I think. Yes, we are. And let's see. Not sure if we're connected yet on LinkedIn. So we'll give it just a couple of seconds. If you're catching this on the replay, please use hashtag replay and let us know where you are joining us from. And it does look like now we're connected on LinkedIn. So good deal. Way to go there. But let it hashtag replay so we'll know. And if you've got questions on the way, drop them into the comments. Again, if you're catching us on the replay, be sure to tag me in that so that I get notified that you have left a question and I can come back and answer that, or my guest Tamara can as well. So if you are new to me and I am new to you, let's have some introductions. My name is Beverly Smith, and I am the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm also the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm, so I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for, and I use that knowledge now to help senior level executives, sales professionals to craft their resumes, help them with their job search strategies, their LinkedIn branding, so that they can achieve their career goals. So, um, just a little housekeeping too. This live stream I have done weekly now for about 18 months. And in January, God started leading me, and I just really felt encouraged by Him to take this back to twice a month. So you will start seeing us here, or seeing me here twice a month. It looks like this month will be the first and last Wednesdays. Next month, and no, it won't be the first one. It'll probably be the second and the last Wednesday. And so I will keep you informed and when these episodes come in. And make sure you're following me on LinkedIn because I always post about them there. So last time we met, though, we talked to my friend Karen Gombo, and she is a business coach. And we talked all about addressing those feelings that so many of us get when that we are hired into leadership roles, and kind of developed a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Y'all, it was such a really good episode, and Karen gave us some great actionable tips. So if you missed it, make sure that you go back and catch that on my YouTube channel, and I'll put that link up here in the chat. It's right there. It's at Beverly Smith Resumes. Go to the live tab, and if you go there, all of my replays from all the episodes are there, so you can binge watch, knock yourself out, learn about as much as you want to about the job search process. And also I've had some great guests that I think that you will find extremely helpful. But this week, I want to tell you what we're doing today. This is going to be a special, fun episode with Tamara Bunty. And we're going to be talking about how to sell yourself so that you can stand out, you can get noticed, you can land more opportunities. And whether you're job searching or not, this is an important episode. We want you to be able to do this without feeling salesy or egotistical. So I'm really excited to have her on board with us today. So let me tell you a little bit about Tamara. She is a master sales coach and advises and consults with Fortune 500 companies, executive managers, success coaches, and sales professionals in the area of peak performance, leadership, organizational behavior, and the psychology of achievement in sales. Over the past 20 years, Tamara has excelled in the world of coaching, working with top peak performers and inspiring people to become the best version of themselves. Tamara is the founder of the Institute for Advanced Results, LLC, and Tamara Bunty, Inc., Love of Faith Boutique and Christian Business Connections. She is a national keynote speaker, peak performance coach, health minister, ordained minister, and Dale Carnegie instructor. Tamara has influenced hundreds of thousands of people with her aspiring presentations, CDs, and now a book called The Proverbs of Selling. And she has positively changed the lives of sales professionals, taking them from being order takers to trained sales professionals. So,
Mhm.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Excited. So let's just dive right in because I know you and I've got a lot we want to talk about. So
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit and tell me what are the biggest issues people face with selling?
Well, I think the biggest issue is people just don't know their value and they can't articulate it. And I find this happens often. Even people that have been in business for a long period of time, they still don't know what they're selling. So uh, it's a big issue. And so I tell people that you've got to know your value because otherwise it's like a commodity. Like a lot of people in real estate, mortgage, insurance, a lot of people there's a lot of people selling the same thing. There's a lot of people looking for jobs. So
Mhm.
how do you stand out? How do you just be different with all we got 250 resumes, Why should they choose you? You need to know. And a good example is this. They you see these scrub daddies. I think last year
Mhm.
$100 million in sponge sales, which I found was interesting. And this was about $5 at Walmart. Okay. And then I got a regular sponge for 50 cents. Okay. Now,
Uh-huh.
interesting about both of these sponges, the happy face upside down. All right. Is that they both get the same result. Just
Mhm.
like anyone they hire, they're going to do the job, right?
Mhm.
Look at the difference. This has been around for forever, 50 cents, and this is $5. That's a huge gap in pay. So what I tell people is that you want to be the scrub daddy, you want to be the chosen one, and you want more money, right? You're not just everybody else doing a resume, which is why what you do is so important. Is
Mhm.
writing in your strategy to be able to do that. So either way, whoever they hire is going to get the job done. But the question becomes is, do you deserve to be paid more? Can you articulate
Mhm.
why you should be at the higher range of the whatever it is? You see a lot of them, the range is like 100,000 to 500,000. You're like, oh, the 500,000, right? Well, what are the reasons why they should pay you that? And a
Mhm.
good exercise might be writing that down, and
Yeah.
identifying what that actually might be. But I think that also leads the question for you, which is, when you've got high achievers, their personal brand, how do they stand out? How would you say, from the resume writing perspective, how do they stand out so they don't sound so self promotional? What would you?
So exactly the same thing. You have got to know what your unique value proposition is. And sometimes I feel like that is hard for, I don't just ask my client, okay, so what's your unique value proposition? Because they're just kind of like, um, hmm, I just don't know. You go blank. I think about back when I had my staffing and recruiting firm, we actually hired a sales and business coach to come in. And that was a question he put to us. And we all were just kind of like, okay, whatever. And what he pulled out of us was genius. He said, okay, not only are you locally owned, which, that's great, but there's a lot of firms that can say that too. He said, everyone in here is a certified sales professional or they're in the process of getting it. Do you know that is a distinction that less than 5% of the people in the staffing industry actually have? And so that was something that we put down. But then beyond that, we knew we had very specific niches that we served. So having a professional that can kind of help you pull that out, it is so important that you be able to brand yourself. And of course, um, being able to communicate that, being able to understand and share. And I think also it comes to knowing what are the pain points of the companies I'm interviewing for? What are the things that they're trying to solve? Like if they were to hire me, how would I be able to make a difference so that when you're actually meeting with them, you're coming more with a solution impact versus my responsibles for, but you're talking about results, and you're also using those career stories, just like you use the example of the sponges to tell a story. You're going to use the example of exactly what it was you did and the challenges that you faced there and the results that you've got to showcase, hey, I did this here and I'm sure I can do it at your company too. It'll probably solve this problem over here that you've got.
Would you find that most people have a hard time getting in front of the people for the interview, or just getting the resume out there? Do you think that that they're just, the issue is I don't even get the interview, or is it that they're just sending it out to too many people, just kind of that shotgun approach? Let me throw it out to everybody and see. You're dealing with more high achievers, they're more direct. So I would think that people would be more specific. Like for me, like I've had my own business 17 years, but before that I worked for Tony Robbins. But you know how I got a job with Tony Robbins is I moved to California without a job, and I went into the office with a bouquet of flowers, a huge bouquet of flowers in a glass jar. And I basically said, I'm going to work here. I don't care if you want me to like sweep the floors, but here's what I'm good at. Who is the hiring manager on this area? And then I got, just because I came in with the flowers, I got right in. And then I was, boom, next week on an interview. The next week I'm off on a plane working for them. But with all the resumes I sent in, did nothing. So for me, I was like committed. Like if I want this, I'm going to get it. And a lot of times I think sending a gift makes a big difference. When I worked for Dale Carnegie before that, I called them and I said, this is the only place I'm applying, so you have to hire me. So it was one of those things that I knew what I wanted. They said, well, I guess we'll hire you since you're not applying anywhere else, knowing what you want. But then I come across people all the time that haven't had a job in a long time, and they were very successful, maybe got laid off or for whatever reason, but they're applying to whatever to get a job. Yeah. They're not, because they're coming from a place of scarcity. So they're not really having that specific, like, what do I really want to be doing? So what do you find with the professionals you're working with? They're high achievers, but are they at that place where I'm not having a hard time finding a job? Or is it, I don't really even know, what I want to be doing? Like,
I think the answer to that can be both. I think you get to a certain point in your career, maybe you've got 20 plus years of experience and you are ready to do something different, and maybe you don't know. And that's a whole different issue right there. There needs to be some self-reflection, maybe even some career assessments, working directly with, someone like me that can help coach you through that. But on the other side, and it's so interesting because I just did a presentation to college students about this very subject yesterday, which, we don't have time to uncover everything, but 80% of all jobs are never advertised, and they never will be.
Right.
And so finding those hidden jobs, knowing how to find them, because if you are relying solely on Indeed or Monster or LinkedIn's job board, those can be part of your job search strategy, but they should not be the only thing. And learning how to use tools like LinkedIn effectively to uncover those jobs, learning how to tap into your network, whether it is online on LinkedIn or in person, learning how to conduct informational interviews, those types of things, I think are hugely important. And just being willing to do it, to step out of your comfort zone. If it's been a while since you've looked for a job, then maybe that's going to feel a little awkward and uncomfortable. But here's what I found is most people are willing, they love to help people. And they're also love to talk about themselves. So if you'll go have an informational interview with someone that's maybe in an industry that you're interested in or in a company that you're interested in, then you can ask those questions. You can ask more about their career. You can ask what it's like to work there or those types of things, because it may be that it turns out that's not exactly where you want to go, but you're tapping open that network and you're letting them know very subtly that you're looking for work, as well as they're keeping you top of mind. And there's a whole lot more into that piece, such as follow up and staying involved with your network, that is highly important there. And again, it kind of goes back into, it's very helpful if you know what that unique value is that you bring to the table too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I remember when I bought one of my first properties when I lived in Charlotte, and I knew what neighborhood I wanted to live in. So I just went, my realtor was unwilling to knock on doors. So I went and knocked on doors, and I got 3 people willing to sell. And what I liked the most, when I knocked on her door, she said, "Thank you, Lord. Yes, I want to sell." Her arm was coming up, and I ended up buying her house, and he did the contract on my end. She didn't want to work with an agent. And, but there's something to knowing what you want, right? And I bought that property, and then I told other realtors, these other 2 people are willing to sell, but no one called. So it's just amazing how sales is, from my perspective, being a sales coach, people hide behind messages and emails and text messages. Like, you need to pick up the phone and call people, and ask your network for, I actually help people. I don't do real estate, and I don't do, any of this, but it's amazing. I help my friend a couple friends find a house. I'm like, I'll find a house for you. And then helping people, they're looking to hire someone. Hey, this is a good fit. You should work there. And none of it's online. It's always just tapping into your network and saying, who do you know, but getting more specific as to what you're looking for. Because if you're not clear, you're not going to find it. Like if someone said to me, "Hey, Tamara," or if I just said, "Hey, do you know someone that needs help in sales or a sales coach?" That would be a horrible question, because then I'm going to get referred to like their sick, broke, miserable cousin. No, thank you. But if I said, I want to work with someone that's already great, doing very well in sales, and they want to be even better, they want to take it up a notch, that's my clientele. Because those are the people that want to invest and be better and fine tune and be that 1% shift. Whereas the majority of people, they don't want to change. They don't have the mindset, and they're in the wrong rooms. I mean, I just had a conversation this morning with a really nice professional that started his own business. And I'm like, you're in the wrong room. And so many people say to me, "Oh, I have too many referrals, Tamara. I don't need any more." And I'm like, "But how's your income?" "It's not good." I'm like, you're in the wrong room. So it's getting very clear on where I think, what you want to be doing. What do you really enjoy? I think a lot of people don't take the time to figure that out. And then through experience, and usually it's a painful path, and they don't know what that actually is. So, I'm a big believer in modeling, not motivation. So if someone else is doing something that you love, the best thing you can do is interview that person. It's also the best way to be motivated is by someone already motivated,
Absolutely. I can think back to when I had my other business, and if someone just showed up that was remotely interested, we always had a conversation. It doesn't hurt anything. Doesn't mean you have to hire them, but having that conversation is highly important.
And the questions that are asked are so key. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know, they hired someone, and then they hired them for a period they're going to be out, and then they find out that they're pregnant and going to go on maternity leave the very time they hired them for to take over. So the questions that you ask are so important, and being very detailed. I think the more detailed, the better. But it takes, it takes time for people to like ask those questions, like, who am I going to be around? How am I going to be spending my time? I talked to someone that wanted to become a police officer, totally changed careers. And I said, "But do you want to look for bad things all day long?" And he's like, "That's the last thing I want to do, is always be looking out for bad things happening." And, he's like, "That's not where I want to spend my focus." So sometimes it's just recognizing, it sounds cool. I think I would enjoy that, but maybe not in that arena,
Right.
But let's, I want to ask you some stuff about LinkedIn, because I know you say LinkedIn is the online networking of business. So, what would you say are the biggest pitfalls and the greatest aspects of it? I mean, most of the people are on LinkedIn right now. So,
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception of how to use LinkedIn and what to do there. Uh, People tend to go in, get their profile set up, and they may get that part right, which is good. That's a great start. You do need to optimize your profile fully so that you can be found. 87% of recruiters are sourcing candidates through LinkedIn. The software version that they use, the paid version that they have, is different than maybe the paid version that you and I would have. And it enables them to do a lot of more in-depth searching. So optimizing that profile is key. But here's where they're missing out. They are not connecting strategically on LinkedIn. I do recommend that you connect with the people you know in real life. I mean, it would be so weird to me if we're out on the street and we pass each other by and you don't say hi to me. And granted, maybe we haven't, maybe our paths don't cross or anything like that, but you're in my network. We're gonna say hi to each other. We're gonna be friends. We're gonna be connected there. So connect to those people you know in real life, but beyond that, let's connect strategically. So let's go to those industries that I'm targeting. Let's go look at the companies that I'm targeting. Let's start following companies that are in my industry and make sure that I'm not just following them, but I'm clicking that little bell that's in the corner and getting notified every time they post. Then I can engage with those posts because that's going to trigger the algorithms for their recruiters to see, hey, this person's showing interest in our company. And I also see you can have that open to work banner on without having the open work banner visible to everybody. So they can know that you're open to work. And also you can set up notifications with them, those types of things. But it's just a good way to research and to see who else is working there, because you can then go look at those companies and say, okay, at my university, there's 17 people that graduated from the same university I did or attended the same university I did. Let's go see if I can network with them and have a connection with them and maybe have some informational interviews. But Tamara, the real secret sauce is actually being visible on the platform. And that is engaging with the content that's on your feed, engaging with those posts. Not just that, but having a lot of people say, okay, well, I'm just going to like a bunch of posts. That's not what I mean. Can you add a thoughtful comment to it? Can you read through the comments that are already there? And maybe somebody in the comments says something that makes you think of something else and you can have a conversation with them. So those things are highly important. The other thing is most people won't post on LinkedIn, and you don't have to post 7 days a week. One day a week will get it. It lets LinkedIn know, hey, I'm here. It also lets your network see you and become more visible. And it gives you a chance to showcase your thought leadership as well. So I can talk about things that are going on in my industry. Maybe I can show a case study. Maybe I can show a testimonial for my company or me specifically. Maybe I can post on a new trend in my industry and give my thoughts. Maybe someone that's already a thought leader in the industry writes a really good article and I can just go repost it. But here's the secret: always repost with some additional thoughts. Otherwise, it does not show up it doesn't fully use your network, doesn't take advantage. So if I come along and like it, it actually goes to the original poster's network instead of reaching into showcasing you in my network. And that's kind of maybe a little bit complicated, but your LinkedIn, it's just truly like a spider web, the way it works. It's a network is what it is. And just taking advantage of all of those things is so important. And it doesn't have to be all encompassing. The cool thing about LinkedIn is most people come here to learn. They don't come here for the drama or the trauma that you find on the other platforms.
Right.
So you can leave that behind and you can just look for things to learn and to share. And I'm not saying you won't find drama on LinkedIn. If you're looking for it, you'll find it.
Right.
But you don't have to look for it. You don't have to find it.
Yeah, I find like, well, I'm not looking for a job. So I'm like, who has time for all of that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for a job, you have time for that. Like, but yeah, I think what I see, because I'll post when I'm hiring and things like that, but it's amazing. I get pitched about 18 times a day. So it's a constant, like anytime I see someone like friending me, unless they leave a message, like you said, hey, I saw you speak somewhere or whatever, or I see that they're not like some sort of like AI training or something, because it's just pitch and then they pitch again and then they pitch again. And it's like, I'm just trying to get the top of your feed. I'm pitching again. And I'm like, there's no value. That's why I'm not responding to you. I find that the whole AI stuff is really hurting people today because they're trying to do a little line of personalization, but then it's just an auto bot like sending it again and again. And people got the message. Same thing with calling. Like as a sales coach, I'm like, they got the message. They're just busy. They'll get back to you. But you want to be that gentle reminder over a period of time, not I'm going to send you an email, then I'm going to text you, then I'm going to call you that afternoon. And then like this, it's very aggressive. So I think things are too aggressive, but I think if people went back to actually pick up the telephone and start building relationships rather than pitching their product or service, they would get so much further. Because people are just falling into this trap of these direct messages and there's no value there. It's like, hey, do my 20-minute call, or hey, this is what I do. And it's like, I'm like, oh, you sound like everybody else, So I think it comes down to being more authentic for sure. Same thing when you're calling people, like, hey, I just called this person 3 times. What do I say in the 4th voicemail? You're trying to sell is the 4th voicemail, but most people wouldn't dare call a 4th time. Now that should be 5 times over a period of a year. But I think that I find that there's, just a little bit too aggressive. And then it's just that blanket, let's just see what I can get out there. But I love like the tips, and especially how you said most of the jobs are not found, online. They're found through your network. So, but I do get a lot of people say, hey, can you introduce me to this person you're connected on LinkedIn? But I don't have any idea who they are. I'm like, I'd love to, but I don't even know who they are. But that's because a lot of times I speak in public, so a lot of people friend me and I don't know them. They might know me. But I think it's building that relationship and saying, who do I want to be friends with? Like how I met Erin, how I met you.
Yes.
Through this other guy that cold called me, and I'm like, just became friends. And then he sent an email for Erin's book, and I was like, well, I just want to be friends with her. You introduce us. And so then we became friends. She downstayed at my house, went to a seminar, then introduced me to you. So it's kind of like, and it all came through a cold call. So cold calling is extremely effective. Some of my best friends have come through cold calling. So I'm a big believer in doing it.
I think too, to your point with the phone, is we messaged back and forth just a tiny bit, but it was immediately, hey, we need to talk. We need to get on the phone and talk and that type of thing. And it's so true. And like you said, because Aaron introduced us and encouraged us to have that conversation. It's that connection, and you just never know where opportunities come from. So I shared a fun little story this weekend. The gentleman that asked me to speak to these college students, he had been my insurance agent with my former business. And here's the way he and I connected. You talk about the most roundabout, odd way. So he and I are both in Little Rock, Arkansas, doing our business, going about our things. We're about to make some changes to our business. His wife is friends with the wife of the CFO who worked for my father in my father's business. So that CFO knew what I was getting ready to do with my business, and he told us both, y'all need to meet. I think he can help you get what you need. And I think, she would be a great fit for you and your book of business. Long story short, I did business with that guy for 22 years. He brought clients to me, and I told these college students, I said, I'm here speaking to you today because of two ladies that were friends in Texas, and I'm in Arkansas,
Right. And that's just how it works.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of my business, I teach cold calling and prospecting and referrals, but a lot of my business I got through cold calling, and I'm there teaching them how to cold call. So I have more validity in actually doing it. So, but it's so cool, the friends you can make by being that friend, and saying, who do I want to be friends with? I mean, and the cool thing is, I'm a Christian sales coach, so I love we can talk about Jesus on here, is that I just did a presentation in December, and a woman came up to me after, and we were talking about clothes or whatever. And she's like, do you want to just be friends? I'm like, sure. So I invite her to come to a women's retreat out here in Charlotte. And this is like 3 weeks ago. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you can stay with me. And I'm like, of course, I don't know this woman, but she's really nice. So she stays with me. And then I realized that on the car ride that I don't really think she's saved. We're having this conversation. And the conversation was very worldly, right? And then the next day I'm like, yeah, I don't really think she's saved. So I'm like, I felt like the Holy Spirit said, have you been baptized? And she said, no. And I said, well, you have to be baptized. So I called my pastor, and I'm like, well, you're getting baptized this afternoon. And so she makes the trip back, comes, my pastor leads her through the gospel. Because a lot of people don't really know the gospel. They're very lukewarm. They call themselves a Christian, but there's no fruit. And so she got saved and she got baptized. And I am telling you, it was like the coolest thing ever, where it's like, here I'm doing a sales presentation, but for me, telling Jesus is the best part. So it's also recognizing, like for me, I spend most of my time in the secular world. But when I get a chance to like be around people that are like, we can talk about Jesus and I don't have to be politically correct. Like that's an important thing for people to look for. Like for me, I've been praying like, Lord, bring me more Christian friends, bring me more Christian businesses to work with. And he has really honored that prayer. And it's just been a breath of fresh air, because that revives me for all the secular meetings where I have to like talk about right versus wrong, don't lie, cheat, steal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have to educate them.
Like, let's not cheat your employees. You know what I mean? Like, that's stealing. That's not showing up on time. That's lying. That's bearing false witness. So like that revives me for, as I feel like I'm an introducer to Christ. But I also find that, Jesus was the best salesman. He sold more books than anybody else. Still number one most sold books. So it's like, if he sold through stories and parables, perhaps if we started doing that in our resume writing, in our interviews, and be able to bridge the gap between what they're looking for and my solution, that's when you're really going to get the higher end of the pay. You're going to be more fulfilled, more challenged, want to, step it up in your career. So
absolutely. He sold through serving too, which I think is so important. We sometimes get in our career, sometimes get blocked a little bit with imposter syndrome. And maybe we feel like, oh, I'm not really qualified, or we
Mhm.
can't figure out what that unique value proposition is. And I think when we reframe that
Right.
is the first step, and we ask a better question. We ask, how can I serve? How can I better serve my company? How can I better serve my team? How can I better serve this prospective client that's in front of me? What is it we can do? And if you really, so what that does is that gets the brain triggered and thinking
Right.
and processing through that. But if you really want to get added value to that, you ask God beforehand. You say, God, help me determine what can I do to better serve? And then
Right.
just be quiet and listen. And maybe you don't get anything right away. And I'm not saying he speaks audibly, but you'll get that thought in your head. And that is him directing your steps. That
Yeah.
is him saying, hey, here you asked, here's your ideas. Or maybe for me, I'll be out on a walk or out on a run, and I just got, it feels like I'm getting a download. And I'm just like, hang on, let me get my phone out so I can
Yeah,
voice text.
he works perfect in our weakness, and
Yeah.
it's just asking him to speak through us. And I think when you're focusing, like when I teach people on us speaking, it's not about what you're going to say, it's about what does your audience need to hear. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
about like, oh, am I good enough, or am I, maybe not as qualified or whatever. Maybe flip it to what do they need, and then making that shift of like, you have the right to change your story. Like maybe you
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that lie that you're not good enough or you're not there yet or whatever, and step into a new truth. I mean, when I wrote my book, I didn't think I could write a book because English, like I need an editor. Let's just say I thank God for editors. I just didn't feel like I'm not a writer until I saw Robert Kiyosaki was interviewed. And he said, I'm not a writer, but I have something to say. And that gave me
Mm.
permission to write a book because I didn't think I was qualified because like English, I just struggled the most. That's why I did presentations because I didn't like writing because all the editing and I just not my thing. But that gave me that permission to say, well, I have ideas. My editor can, make it perfect, right? This is what I pay him for, and now I'm working on a third book. So it's like having that, you need to be around that. It's like when I bought my first house, well, this is a ripoff. Why am I going to buy this? And then my dad said, well, you'll pay it off in 7 years, and I never had that thought. I
Uh-huh.
never thought everyone I knew had a mortgage, right? Except for him. So it's like you need
Yeah.
to be around people that I think challenge you to
Mm.
get out of that negative space so there's room for growth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and until we
That
can,
reframing.
yeah, you got to reframe it. You have to, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
someone asks for a referral. Like we'll just take real estate. It's simple. Someone says, well, do you know anybody looking to buy or sell? Which I would say that's an F- ask. But I said, what if you asked, what if you said, who do you know that might be open to buying a second home? That presupposes that the person you're going to be referred to already has money. So I think a lot of times we're just not asking very good questions to establish
Mm.
value, and you've got to get better at that. I mean, your value should be established within the question that you asked, not your
Mm-hmm.
list of accomplishments. Because someone might have a lot
Absolutely.
of accomplishments, but that doesn't mean, like, for example, some people might be good at sales, but they're not good managers.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to identify that just because, and a lot of times a top salesperson will become a manager of salespeople, and it's usually the worst person.
And they're miserable.
Right?
I have coached more clients out of that. They'll say, I think the natural step in my progression would be the sales manager. I said, oh, so you just sat here and told me that you love being out in front of the clients, and now you're telling me you want to be behind a desk supervising 10 people and being responsible to make sure that they all hit their quotas.
Right.
Oh, no, I don't think I want that. I was like, yeah, I didn't think you did either. So,
Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating though, but a lot of people don't see that. Like, what are their
yeah.
real skills at? And they don't take the time to
Yeah.
really think, well, that might be the next level, but is that really the right level for me
Right.
to? Like, I just
Right.
the other day, and he's like, they want to put me in this management position, but I don't want to manage. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, do you want to just sell or do you want to sell and coach? There's a difference between managing and coaching. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like one of those like light bulbs where it's like, no, I want to sell and I want to coach, but I'm not interested in managing. And I said, well, then you need to put some systems in place if you're not going to hire a manager, right? To coach them on. What are those benchmarks for shifting?
Yeah.
I think also for people to identify what's the breakthrough. Like one of the best questions I ever heard someone say was, let's say it's December 31st, 2025. What has to happen for you to say this has been the best year of my life? That's the breakthrough. That's the point that you want to focus in on what does that have, what is that? Or is it just a means to an end? Is this a job to fulfill some other passion you have? But I don't think anyone is 2 years, like when my son was 2, I'm like, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's not like, I want to be in sales, I want to sell insurance. It's like, I want to be a firefighter, right?
I want to be in resume writing.
I think a lot of people, like, you have to think a little bit bigger vision as a means to an end of what am I really doing? Because then people really tap into their passion and their vision and their God-given talents versus just another job. So I think people need to realize that they've been given gifts, and are they utilizing the gifts that God has given them? And how to best be a steward of what you have rather than shrinking yourself down and lowering your value. So you first have to see your value before other people will.
Yeah. So good. I want to circle back around. I want to ask you a question. So you've talked about cold calling. I want to know, what does someone need to do to make themselves stand out? And you kind of gave a couple of examples earlier, but talk to me, give me a little more nuts and bolts behind. I'm cold calling. What can I do to make myself stand out and actually be chosen, or be, them actually want to stop and have a conversation with me?
Well, if they actually called, that would be the first step. I always say that a person that barely speaks English and mumbles on the phone will be more successful than someone that's skilled and doesn't pick up the phone.
Yeah. So, the answer is always no, right?
So, you've got to get good at getting through a gatekeeper. You've got to be able to ask intelligent questions so that they want to meet with you. And I call them stump questions. So it's coming in and saying, it's just like going for a job is the same thing of trying to get a new client. It's the same thing. So like I had a payroll company, they used to cold call businesses, HR professionals, and say, what are you doing for your payroll services? Which is a horrible question. It's like, what are you doing for sales training? Horrible question. You're talking about the competition. Have you hired anybody yet for this position? Horrible question, right? You need to go, what's the next question that we can ask? So it doesn't matter. Like I got into a company once, they had just hired another sales training company for $1 billion. And then they hired me because what I do is different than all those other companies, but I'm able to establish the gap between what they already have and what I'm going to fulfill. So it's knowing what are you bringing to the table where they must meet with you. And you know what? I'm just going to hire 2 people. I already hired someone, but I like you too. I'm going to hire you too. So don't think that you have to fit into this. I have to get this box of this opening with this job. Sometimes things will come in other avenues. Like when I wanted to become a Dale Carnegie instructor, they said I was required to be a successful salesperson before I was a coach. And I was like, oh, that's miserable. I just want to be a coach. But how many coaches do I coach because they can't survive full time as a coach? Because they can't sell their own clients on new behaviors. If you can't sell them on working with you, how are you going to sell them on changing their behavior, right? So I think when it comes down to is that you have to identify who is that actual person, right? And pick up the phone and get their direct line and call them. And then when you call that person, it's really being able to ask some questions that establish value. And I think it's kind of having an attitude of, you don't take no for an answer. It's you got to go get what you want. And just notice too, if you do get a no, that's just an objection. Like my parents just had their 50th wedding anniversary, and my mom told the story of how they met at a bar, and my mom liked the other bartender, not my dad. But my dad called 15 Dolans to find my mom. And then they went on a date or whatever. And then they started dating, and date a year, and he proposes. She says no. She's like, you're a farm boy and I'm a city girl. It's not going to work out. They break up for a month. He comes back. They date again. He had proposes. She says he gets a job in the city, says yes. Poof, here I am. So what I'm saying is you can't take no for an answer. I mean, it's like you've got to go get what you want. And I think what's missing is people are responding but not winning. You got to win today. Go get what you want and just stop being, get this oppression over you because someone said no. And to me, that means no, not right now. It's just like if someone says, no, I don't want to buy from you, it just means I haven't established enough value for them to buy yet. And it just means that eventually they're going to buy. They just haven't bought yet. So I think, and this would be more towards your end of the field. Like for me, like my sister's, looking for a job. She's like, I can't download my resume because my Mac isn't updated or something. To me, and I'm like, but this just looks like a 1996 resume, which is like the last time she had a job, So do something on Canva and make it look better, or like first figure out what it is that you want to do, and she's like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, and I'm like, well, I think it comes down to who are you networking with, and you don't want to just go get a job. God's ordained you for something special. So let's use the gifts and talents he's given you to do that. So I think that comes down into how people network, like you were saying on LinkedIn, and, how they're communicating with people online. And so, I mean, what's the first steps you tell people for when they want to get out there and, maybe find something new outside of their field and try something new?
Yeah. No, I actually talk a lot about this. I think the very first thing is to do kind of an inventory. I like journaling on it. I have some prompts that I usually give to people on, what are activities in your past or current job where you just feel like you're in that zone of genius and you just feel like I could do this all day, or I would do it for free. It's just, it feels good. What do people compliment you on? Get clear on what it is you don't want to do. I remember so many years ago when I was a trailing spouse and my husband got transferred a lot, and I was working through a temporary service at a bank, and I remember calling them going, do not send me back. They'd send me on like 3 assignments, and because I had been a bank teller before. So they thought, oh, we've got the perfect person. And I was like, if you send me back, I'm quitting. And so being clear on what it is you don't want to do as well. And there's just a whole bunch more, but getting that clarity around what the next steps are. Obviously then going and talking to people, having those informational interviews. And this works great whether you're a seasoned professional wanting to make a transition, or you are young, just starting out. Have those networking talks, learn the dirt, learn what is it that this job looks perfect for me, and go have a conversation. They're like, well, actually, here's what I don't like about it, but what I do like outweighs. And you may find too that maybe the industry is right, but the position you thought you wanted is not. Kind of like that sales manager versus a sales rep thing. Right. You really are a better fit over here than you would have been over there, and knowing what that looks like, but you don't know if you don't take that exploration as well. So I think that's exactly where your sister would need to start out, is getting clarity. And I have a download, a free download. So if anybody wants it, I can definitely post that link in the chat, but you can just download it for free and go through those journal prompts. And then if you want to take it deeper, I actually have an assessment tool that people can do. But anyway.
Totally, yeah, no, that's great. This has been super fun. I think put some links in, and I'm going to put this up on my channels and YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be really good.
I'm going to go up.
Looking for what you offer. So,
I where's the best places for people to connect with you? Would that be LinkedIn and maybe YouTube and your
Yeah,
website?
I post the same thing on all the sites. It's so overwhelming. It's like, can we just do one, please? But either or, I put shorts up and just some motivational clips. But my website, people can go through a sales assessment, rate their skills against the best. I just updated, it's called Upgrade Your Sales Skills. People can go through and watch some videos on some different ways to enhance their skills. A lot of times I'll go over like words to avoid, power words to add in. That makes a big difference in writing and emails and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So my website is just tamarabunty.com. So there's a lot of resources on there for people. Just help people tend to like me because I just show them how to make more money. So it's a good thing. But I do.
That's always helpful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think
I've dropped some links and I've just dropped some links for you in the chat, so y'all can go and definitely check her out. And also, y'all might want to check out her book. So that's Proverbs for Selling, and that's on her website as well. So I put the link directly to your store there so they can drop in and go and see that. So very good. We had a comment from Asanji who thanked us for the time and the insightful dialogue and tips as well. So Asanji, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to drop those in the chat. We're really glad that you were here. And anyone else, if you've got questions, make sure you drop those in the chat for us as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Tamara, do you have any final thoughts that you want to add?
Be the scrub daddy, be the scrub daddy. Ask for more, charge more. Don't be, just because it's been around for 100 years doesn't mean that it's the best. And don't think that a lot of companies go out of business because they don't innovate. So I think be innovative in your approach, and whether you're looking for a job or you're looking to hire somebody or you're looking for new clients, I think it really comes down to there's the science of selling, but then there's the art of selling. Yeah. And today you have to be good at both. So that would be my my motivational tip for today.
Absolutely. I think that's so good. And I love the example, and it's so true. I mean, Scrub Daddy, I love my Scrub Daddy. Well, I don't really like to clean, but it does it makes the process a lot easier.
Yes, it does.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really insightful and a lot of fun. And I hope that everyone who's joined us has gotten some value. I've put some links in the comments, and I apologize. I'm not sure if they've gone through on LinkedIn. If not, I will go and drop those in afterwards so that you can have those. And I've got Tamara's links, and I also put the link to the Career Clarity Journal prompts in there as well. So we'll not be here with you next week, but I will be back at the end of the month. So looking forward to that conversation. And I believe that that's going to be a solo episode. So very good. I look forward to seeing y'all then, and y'all have a great rest of the week. Bye for now.
Well, thanks.